why we're on? Okay, excellent. So I don't know whether it's a blessing or a curse to go last. Well, you'll soon find out, won't you? What I'd like to do in these 5 minutes is tell you about the new project that I've started at the Woolf Institute, Forgiveness and Future Building. Now, before I begin, I want to quiz you, and I'm going to give you 3 dates that really are the cornerstone dates of this project. It's the genesis point, really. The first is the 14th of December 1995, I remember it well. The second was the 10th of April 1998, and finally 31st of August 2020. Does anybody in this room know the significance of these dates?
It is the 10th of April, the Good Friday agreement.
Yes! Wow. Well done! This is very good. And I think this is the lead-in to sort of the basis of the project, which is I am interested in how forgiveness and reconciliation manifest at the group level in post-conflict societies. So that probably gives you a little bit of a clue as to the other 2 dates. The first was the signing of the Dayton Accords, which ended the Bosnian War in 1995. The second, as Lady Hale very correctly got, was the Good Friday Agreement, or the Belfast Agreement in 1998. And the third, the most recent one, was the signing of the Juba Peace Agreement in South Sudan in 2020. I'm a social psychologist, and I'm interested in morality. I'm interested in how people think about harm, how people think about justice, and how these integrate with intuitions, religious concepts, cultural concepts of forgiveness. So for me, the interest in is exploring how differences in forgiveness manifest in these 3 different contexts that vary incredibly in terms of religiosity, diversity, resources, social economic status. But what I'm particularly interested in is if we can find similarities, if we can drill down and find people's intuitions about how to think about appropriate punishment in combination with forgiveness and reconciliation. So it's quite a big task, as you can imagine, but it's definitely a task worth pursuing, because let me tell you this, 60% of all conflicts reoccur. So the signing of a peace agreement is not a reliable predictor of social stability. Peace itself will not guarantee social stability, and we see this in the global data. 60% of conflicts reoccur. And the next one, surprisingly, post-conflict peace lasts on average only for 7 years. So bearing in mind that the Juba Agreement was signed in 2020, what this tells us is the next 5 years in South Sudan are going to be critical. And since the 1990s, most conflict onsets have actually been reoccurrences rather than new conflicts occurring. So what can we do then? We sign a peace agreement. How can we ensure that stability is ensured after a formalised agreement is reached? Now, it may come as no surprise to the theologians and philosophers in the room that forgiveness is argued to be a key mechanism in ensuring this social stability. And social psychology sort of lags behind by a couple of millennia, and we've recently cottoned on to the idea that, yes, forgiveness as a psychological construct can play a very important role in stabilisation after conflict. It's in its infancy, but over the past decade or so, work and research in the social psychology of intergroup forgiveness, that is, in groups forgiving each other, has exploded. And there's been a wealth of studies in Northern Ireland, in Bosnia, looking at the processes that are involved between communities when they attempt to reconcile and build a more stable future. Now, as valuable as this work is, there are problems. There are gaps that we need to fill. First of which is that a lot of the social psychological research relies on assumptions about interpersonal forgiveness and just conflate it and transpose it to the group level. So we know a lot about interpersonal forgiveness. The granting of forgiveness from another individual to another is quite, therapeutically, is quite well researched and well discussed. But let me ask you this, what does it mean for a group to forgive another group? What does this actually mean? Does every single person in the group have to come to a point where they forgive every other single person in the group? In which case, the problem seems unsolvable, because what if the group doesn't exist anymore? Or what if the perpetrators in the group died 50 years ago? How do notions of forgiveness play into this discourse? So that's one of the problems that we're battling with, particularly, and I'm going to talk about it in a little bit later on, in the context of Northern Ireland, which is a place very close to my heart. So let me tell you a little bit about how we are trying to get over this problem of using interpersonal methods to measure intergroup level forgiveness. Well, along with my colleague, Dr. Justin Lane, we are using incredible AI technology that can allow us to model social systems at the group level. And what we can do is use AI-informed, essentially mock digital societies to really explore how forgiveness, revenge and reconciliation play out at precisely the group level, rather than relying on interpersonal methods of exploration of forgiveness. And what I want this to do, my goal all along, has really been for this project to be right at the beginning of this burgeoning field of the intersection of psychology and technology and policy. So harnessing this incredible technology that's available to us, how can we make an actual difference in post-conflict societies? And one of the other ways that we're doing that is by actively engaging with emerging leaders in post-conflict societies. So I'm very pleased to announce that next year the Woolf will be hosting a summer school with emerging political leaders from the Balkans, from Ukraine and Central Europe, who will be coming here and we'll tell them about the results of our project. They'll interact with experts in the field, and then we'll transpose to Belfast, where they'll actually see a post-conflict society almost 25 years after the signing of a peace agreement. Now I'm going to end on this slide. This is from my last trip to Belfast. I'm off next week again. This is a mural. Belfast is a city of murals, and this is a particularly striking one. And for me, and I'm unfortunately not going to have enough time to tell you about it, but the role of identity, particularly in the context of Northern Ireland, as a barrier to intergroup forgiveness and reconciliation. And on that note, thank you very much.